Hello, welcome to the Sports Philanthropy Podcast. I am your host, Roy Kessel, and today we are very excited to have with us Adam Nemer. Adam is the founder of Simple Mental Health and is doing amazing work around the country, and we're very excited to have him with us today. So, Adam, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks, Roy. It's great to be here. Happy Friday morning.
I know we've got a lot to cover and a lot of content that you're have created and helping so many people. But I want to back things up a little bit to get started and ask you about Adam as a young boy. What got you excited about sports?
Oh, man. What got me excited about sports was every season there was something to do, right? It's like you'd go. I was like growing up in Cedar Hills out in Beaverton, Oregon, you'd play soccer, then baseball, then basketball, and you got to do everything. And then the best part would be the winter would come and you'd get to go skiing on the weekends. For me, it was just growing up, always being engaged. There was just, I don't understand exactly how kids these days and focus on one sport. And I loved that all year round. I was just moving around to different stuff, but mostly that I got to ski on the weekends.
So that really, for you, created a lot of passion. Talk a little bit about as you progressed, what attracted you to those sports?
I am at my heart and have somehow raised my kids. We're a skiing family. When I was early on, when I was in, I think, first grade in Portland, Oregon, this was in 1976, 77-ish, right? I was put on with my sisters on the ski bus called Powder Hounds, right? And it was run by this guy named Gary Zimmerman. He would bring kids from Portland up to Timberline Lodge to go skiing on the weekends and give them lessons and all that sort of stuff. Everybody on this damn bus were all my parents' friends. It was like all the kids from synagogue. We were all on the Powder Hounds bus going skiing. I never figured it out. And now our parents never skied. I asked my dad later on in life, I'm like, what were you doing? He's like, oh, we were just dropping you off so we could have a free day to go hang out with everybody. So my parents' dream in the 70s to send us off for a day so they could relax just became a lifelong passion. I ended up ski racing through high school. And, I just, there's no place I'd rather be than on the top of a mountain looking into a big bowl with at least one of my kids next to me about to pop into it. That's just the greatest feeling in the world.
It's interesting that you talk about the parents using that as an escape, because you look at today's youth sports landscape, it's really the exact opposite. The parents don't have a chance to get away. They are dragging kids back and forth across the country and paying a fortune for travel sports. It becomes the lifestyle, which is, It's not about the kids playing sports. It's about all of the travel and everything that goes on. We speak to a lot of parents that are spending into the tens of thousands of dollars a year on that. So it's a very different environment. So as you were growing up, take us through that progression a little bit. You said you did ski racing.
Yeah. And then my family moved to Denver in high school, which for me was going from Portland, Oregon to, you get in the mountains of Colorado. It was absolutely remarkable. But by the time I'd gotten to college, I just gotten burnt out from skiing 4 days a week. And I just decided, I need to get away from this. So I ended up going to Southern California to go to college. And I kind of left the sport behind in college, spent a couple years abroad, then came back to Oregon to work with my family. And through that process, I ended up reconnecting with some buddies. And, I'm really glad that I did. I think my wild love for the sport for me started as a kid. My real love of the real just absolute joy blossomed over the years later, and especially as I got my kids into it. So, the famous in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, the top of the mountain, right, is the famous Corbett's Couloir, right? Famed run. You look at the top of it and you pucker up. It is the steepest, bloody. I get scared. I have to get off. I have to crawl to the edge of it. It's so damn scary, right? So I never was there until I was an adult going there with my sons, and one was 12, one was 8, and man, watching my 12-year-old bloody, I was afraid to look at it, and my 12-year-old ended up crawling down into it and shooting corbett's. Man, that was one of the neatest days of my life.
Well, that's one of the great things with sports, right? It's the bonds that it creates and the opportunities that you have to spend that time with your kids. And when you look at the work that you're doing now in Simple Mental Health, take us through the journey of how you got from this skiing racer across into the world of mental health.
Yeah, totally. So, it's funny. I was just looking at my mug. So here's me and Herschel when this was my oldest, when he was probably, I don't know, 6, day up at Mount Hood. All I have around me are pictures from us skiing days. So, it really wasn't that much of a hop, skip, and a jump, really. Growing up, I idolized my dad. He was the guy. My dad and his dad worked together at the same company, and seeing them work together always made me want to work with my dad. So growing up as a kid, I just always knew that, geez, I love this guy, but he's kind of mysterious, right? And I wanted to be around him. I want to be a Nemer man, Nemer men work together, because that's what I saw. So growing up, it's what I always wanted to do. So after college and after living abroad, for a couple of years, I ended up moving back to Portland, Oregon, to work with my father in the family business. And, it was a joyous time in my life. It was really, you get those. I was getting trained by my dad. My childhood dream as a kid is I want to work with my dad. And here I am in my 20s and I'm doing it, right? I'm actually living the dream I had as a child. And it was a rich and educational, and I am such a better leader and manager and business person today for the experience. However, it ended tragically when I was 29, and so we were maybe 5 years in to working with him. I found him one morning after he died of suicide, and what happened is I didn't get anywhere near enough help that I needed. The shame and the stigma and the myths of the stigmas of mental illness back then, like now, were so strong that I really didn't get any help. I had a few therapy sessions, and I went off into the world. I got an MBA, got married. I ended up with having this remarkable Forrest Gump-like lucky executive career at Kaiser Permanente. So I was a 20-year Kaiser Permanente executive out on the West Coast, CFO of their healthcare system out in the Northwest. I was the leader of the operations of their health plan in the Northwest. So I did that for about 20 years. And what I didn't realize was that for the first 17 years as a leader at Kaiser, I was also experiencing severe but undiagnosed depression and anxiety, right? So finding my dad was just like breaking my ankle, but I didn't get it better. So then your knee hurts, your hip hurts, et cetera. Mental health works the same way. I found dad's suicide and I didn't get the help that I needed. And then that PTSD experience that I kept reliving over the 17 years made all aspects of my life broken. And I checked every box of severe mental illness other than hallucinations. And I had no idea, right? I mean, I couldn't admit it. And one day, so I was going on to my journey about 17 years. And just like that, kind of getting hotter and hotter every day, sicker and sicker. And then I had a triggering moment that just pushed me to the edge. I about 8 years ago, 17 years into this process, I found my mom after she passed away. And that process of finding her, just like I said, was a triggering event that after all those years of severe illness, I had a complete emotional breakdown and I had no idea. I started wearing, by then I was promoted. I was running our health plan in the Northwest. I started wearing Levi's to work, t-shirts. I'm pretty sure I wore flip-flops a couple days. Man, Roy, I swear it looked like I was going to the beach, not going to run a multi-billion-dollar health plan. And I was mean as hell to everybody, right? So it's complete emotional breakdown. And I looked disheveled. I'd shave half my face. It was horrible. I had no clue. 3 weeks later, this national Kaiser leader, this guy named David Lake, he stops by my office on a Monday morning. And he's like, "Hey, man, how are you doing?" I said, "I'm doing great." He's like, "Well, you know, I know about you finding your dad's suicide now. And I know you just found your mom. Are you seeing a therapist? Is that why you're doing so well?" And I'm like, "I don't need to see a therapist. I'm doing great." You know, just wearing that mask that you'd wear to hide all that I've learned to wear, or to hide all these feelings I didn't understand. And he says, "So, you know, Adam, do you know the signs to look for in yourself in case you need to get some mental health down the road? You know, you need to get some help down the road." As I say no, now, right, I'm like sitting in his office looking like shit, excuse my language. And as I say no, he pulls out of his pocket and slides across the desk the business card of Kaiser's Employee Assistance Program in the Northwest. And he's like, "Man, give EAP a call. It can't hurt. You've had these traumatic experiences in your life, and you should at least know the signs to look for in yourself in case you need to get some help down the road." I had no idea what was going on, right? I walk out of his office. I say, "Thank you." That 5-minute conversation changed my life. Next day, I go see the EAP counselor, goes through the checklist. That's where I realized, I'm in a lot of trouble. I got to get help. And that was really my crashing point and the beginning of my healing process. But to end the loop on this, so how all this started with Dad and how this business and what I do now, to close this loop, what had really happened is that dude, David Lake, that national Kaiser leader who came to see me on a Monday, the day, I can't believe the universe works like this sometimes. It boggles my mind. The day before, on Sunday, he was in a mental health first aid class at his church. He's sitting in his church. It was on Sunday, and they're going through the signs and symptoms that someone could be struggling with their mental well-being. And he's like, Nemer. Oh my God, Adam's in a lot of trouble. Next part of the class, when they teach you how to approach somebody in a safe, thoughtful, caring, and non-judgmental manner, is when he came up with handed me the business card the next day. So senior leader at a $90 billion business became mental health literate in a real short workshop in less than half a day. The next day, in a 5-minute conversation, got me on the road to help change my life. And so that's what Simple Mental Health is here to do. So we are here to teach leaders how to, the business case and the human case, to have those 5-minute conversations and to normalize the topic of mental health in their organizations.
Well, I want to back you up for a minute, because I think you hit really on that key element, which is the things that he learned in how to make the approach. You rattled them off really quickly, but I want you to repeat them and go through them again, because I think that is really the art of what's being done, and how he was able to get through to you in that open, non-judgmental way, because you were able to receive it because of that tone. If he had come and looked you in the eye and said, Adam, man, you're a mess. You really got to go get some help. And you can't be leading like this, right? Your walls go up, your defensive mechanisms go up, and you probably don't go and call EAP that next day.
That's it's all in the body language, the tone. So I'll give you an example. We take first aid classes. I think it's the stat is like 70% of Americans feel comfortable providing the Heimlich maneuver. It's just a recent stat. So we've all learned first aid skills, right? Physical first aid skills. And we all have them in our toolboxes. For the love of the universe, if someone was choking at a lunch meeting, we'd all know how to help them. Now, what you learn in a mental health literacy class, what this guy was learned at his church that day, is at its core 3 basic things. 1, how to notice the signs and symptoms that someone might be struggling with their mental well-being. Right. So that's the first step. Now, the thing is we're all walking around and noticing these things all day long, because the signs and symptoms are changes in behavior, showing up late, being, why is Misha why does Misha get aggravated sometimes when she used to always be so smooth? Why is Joe late for work often? I've noticed recently that Sarah is looking very disheveled online when she really is normally right on it. I've noticed lately that Luis has not been able to make decisions like he used to be able to make them as clearly and quickly. So these signs and symptoms, we're noticing them all day. What this first part of the class teaches you is, hey, we're noticing these things. Now, maybe that means, maybe Jose's been late for work lately, because there's struggles at his mom's sick. They had to put their dog down and whatever. Or maybe he's struggling with his mental well-being. We don't know. So that first thing is the awareness, is connecting the dots between what we're seeing every day and noticing each other and saying, hey, you know what? That it could be that Mary, Jeff, John, you name it, could be struggling with their mental well-being. We don't know. We're not a therapist. Just like when you do the CPR, you're not a cardiologist. When you're recognizing someone with the signs and symptoms, you're not a therapist. You're just being human. You're saying, whoa, something's up with Jackson. I wonder what's going on. That's the first step. Does that make sense? All right. Yep. Second step is engaging them in a safe, thoughtful, caring, and non-judgmental manner, right? So to take a step back here, at a macro level, right, there's this macro level problem that we have going on in our society around mental health. I've been conditioned to think of it as an isolation cycle. And the way this isolation cycle works is, the myths that we've taught ourselves around mental illness, like depression isn't real, drive the stigmas around mental illness. Like people with depression are just weak. They're not strong enough. And those stigmas drive feelings of shame. Like, oh my God, I'm feeling sad and depressed. I must be a weak person. And that leads to the silence. The feelings of shame leads to silence. Oh my God, I'm depressed. I can't tell anybody about this. And we have this circle of myths, stigma, shame, and silence that's just perpetually pulling ourselves apart. And so check this out. 80% of people who don't get help for their mental health condition, the number one reason they give for not getting help is stigma. They're worried about what everybody else is going to think, right? I mean, think about that. It's like, can you imagine if, so the stat is 20% of Americans every year experience mental illness, less than half get help. And those that do get help, it takes on average 11 years before they get help. I mean, could you imagine waiting that long after noticing the signs of breast cancer for waiting 11 years before you get help, all because of stigma, right? So this isolation cycle is critical. So when engaging somebody, engaging them using caring, non-judgmental, curious, not problem-solving question. For instance, you would never ask, you wouldn't want to say to somebody, hey, dude, why don't you go see a therapist? That's a problem-solving question. But it's a lovely thing to do to say, Jeff, have you considered seeing a therapist? That's a curious question. And so it's really important when having conversations with people is just noticing the language that we're using. So like I said, it's non-problem solving, curious, non-judgmental, and also recognizing that the majority of how we communicate is in the expressions on our faces and all the nonverbal communication, right? So, sitting there like that, you're talking to someone with your arms crossed with that dead executive stare. That's not a good look, right? This is a time to have your arms open, to be engaging with somebody, right? We're not engaging as employer to employee or colleague to colleague, but just as human to human, right? So, and that gets to that next piece of engaging somebody. It's not just knowing the words to use, but knowing where and when you're going to use them, right? So where? In a private location, perhaps on a walk, ideally not in your office because there's a power dynamic there. When there's time to reflect afterwards, when there's not in a busy part of the day, not just before a stressful meeting, not when a big project is due the next day, right? So engaging somebody, that second part, in a non-judgmental, thoughtful way is about using open-ended questions and in the right venue. The last piece, after you've noticed somebody, you've engaged with them, it's really just guiding them to services. And it's helping guiding them to whether it's the EAP program your company offers, to encouraging them to asking them if they've considered seeing a therapist. What a great resource. Have you heard of 988? It's yes. So 988 is the new National Suicide and Crisis Hotline across America. If you're listening to this, a great thing you can do right now is program 988 into your phone. What 988 is, just like 911. If there's a physical emergency, a physical health emergency in America, you call 911, you get help. Now, as of 2 years ago, if you're concerned that you or someone else may be having a mental health crisis, or concerned about you or someone else might be having considering suicide, you call 988. It's so easy. Physical challenge, 911. Mental health challenge, 988. And better than that, people will say, well, I don't know if someone's having a crisis. How do I know? I'm not a therapist. What they tell you is, we know that. But if you think therefore, crisis is self-defined. They say, you know what? If you sense someone's having a crisis and you think you should call, then call. That's okay. And the amazing thing, and the thing blows my mind, is what they'll say is 988 wants you to call them before it becomes a crisis even. They want you to call them. So imagine the situation. So if you're listening to this, think about this personally, right? If you are worried that you or someone else in your life may be struggling with their mental health in any capacity, doesn't have to be a crisis, but you think someone's really struggling with their mental health and you just don't know what to do to help them, call 988. And they will give you advice on how to help them. And that's just the most magical piece of data there is, I think.
Well, I think one of the key things you mentioned is reach out and try and do it before it becomes a crisis, right? When you see a sign, just like we talk about with strokes or with heart attacks or anything else, you're not going to like just sort of sit back and go, well, let me see if this really turns out to be a stroke or a heart attack. I'm just going to
That's
kind of
right.
sit back and watch, right? You're going to react and do something. And I think what's really important for our audience and all of the groups that we talk to is the fact that you described knowing how to do the Heimlich maneuver, being trained in first aid, being trained in CPR. And yet for most of us, the number of opportunities in life, right? I learned how to do a Heimlich maneuver probably in third or fourth grade, right? And I've never had, fortunately, a situation where that has been needed. When you look around and look at the mental health thing, I've had lots and lots of situations where it's been needed, and I haven't necessarily had the words and the system that you've put together. Muddled my way through the best, and fortunately was able to help a few people. But again, that's somewhat by luck, right? And without the best words and best systems. So I think what you've created is so important and so meaningful, and we're excited to have Sports Philanthropy Network partner with you to provide this kind of training. And I know we're going to be doing a lot of things together. So we appreciate you coming on and sharing all of your insight with us today.
It's been so much fun. Yeah. It's, I believe that we can change the world, as we train folk, as we make mental health literacy as common as physical health literacy, we can change the world. And I appreciate the opportunity to work with you guys. This has been so much fun.
Well, you're changing the world, and you're doing it one person at a time or one group at a time, and
one 5-minute conversation at a time.
That's all it takes. So now that you've conquered mental health, a small challenge, we're going to give you a bigger challenge, and we're going to use our superpowers to make you commissioner of a sport. So tell us what sport you would choose.
I get to be the commissioner of any sport. Well, I don't know that they have a commissioner, but it would have to be the free ride ski tour. Easy peasy. I want to be the free ride ski tour commissioner.
So now you've taken charge of that, and you're going to start instituting the rules and controls. What's the first thing that you want to change there?
I'm now the commissioner of the free ride ski tour. And so now we're running races all across the world in the steepest, craziest, gnarliest powder dumping runs. The rule that I would make on day one, if they sprinkled pixie fairy dust on me, is the commish gets to forerun every race. Hell yeah. That's it.
There you go.
I get to forerun. Yeah.
You're going to take control and lead the charge there. So
someone's got to. They always need a half dozen forerunners. Make sure it's safe. It's okay. Damn, it's the commission's job. I might bring my kids. Maybe it would be like I get to bring 4 of my buds.
Well, that's a good.
The commissioner's buddies get to be they'll end up being my kids all the time. But
well, Adam, we appreciate you taking all of the time with us today. Really enjoyed learning more about the system and process for Simple Mental Health. If people want more information about your work and want to reach out, what's the best way for them to do that?
They can check out our website, connect with us there at simplementalhealth.com. Follow us on LinkedIn. You can also connect with us at info@simplementalhealth.com for an email.
Well, terrific. We know that this is going to be an important episode that many of our viewers and listeners are going to be able to learn a lot from. So thank you again for making time for us today.
This is great. Be well, guys. Thanks so much, Roy.
And for all of our viewers and listeners, we appreciate you taking the time to join us on the Sports Philanthropy Podcast. This is your host, Roy Kessel, signing off. Please remember to live generously. Thank you, everybody.